So, now that we've had some time to digest Season 2 of Invincible, and I've had enough time to reread the comics, we can finally have the coveted Season 3 prediction video. Let's not dilly-dally around because we've got a lot to talk about in this video. Here's how we're going to do this. I'll start by sequentially going through this section of the comics and touching on each important event and discuss how likely it is to happen in Season 3, and then I'll try and predict how Season 3 might play out and what could happen in each episode. I might throw out some random or wild theories later, and finally I'll end the video by briefly discussing the unfortunate leaks we got for Season 3 that have been circulating. So if you do not want to hear about them, then you can just enjoy the video up until then and then tap out, which is completely okay if you decide to do so. Obviously, very big spoilers from the comics will be discussed throughout the video, so don't watch if you don't want things spoiled. So, I want to start the Season 3 predictions by going through all the events and moments from around this time in the comics because I think it'll give us a better idea of how the episodes might play out. There's a lot of characters to juggle, storylines to continue, arcs to explore, and themes to carry over or begin in this season. It's easy to make big, broad predictions like, oh, Invincible War will happen this season. And it's easy to forget about small details like where they might take Debbie's arc or how they may flesh out relationships between smaller characters or whatever. So I think it's important to go through and lay everything out so those small details don't get overlooked. So without further ado, let's get into it. So since they shuffle events around a lot for the show, it's kind of hard to pinpoint where to start us at because the show takes us all the way up to events from issue 45, but there's also a lot of stuff from issues before 45 that we haven't seen but may still get adapted in some way. So I may jump around a bit at first and then kind of go issue by issue from 46 and on, but just stick with me. For each issue or event I'm talking about, I'm going to give it a rating of how likely I think it is we see it in Season 3 just to make it more fun. So each thing will get a not happening, maybe, or a for sure. We're going to keep it simple. Okay, issue 42. We get Mark on the moon and the whole astronauts distrusting him thing. We get the Giant returning, a press conference, and then probably most important, we get Oliver's powers. I think all of these things are pretty likely, honestly. Oliver getting his powers is a for sure for Season 3 in my eyes. The Giant is fun, so I'd like to see him come back and hear his origin explained in the show, but I'll give it a maybe. The press conference thing is small but funny, so I'd like to see that, and I think it'd make for a great trailer moment, so for sure. The moon thing, I'll come back to. Issue 46, we get Mark bench pressing, the introduction of Multi-Paul, introduction of the future guys, and I'm going to give all these things a for sure. I think we'll see all of them, honestly. Issue 47, we get more Titan and the Order stuff, and more stuff with Tether Tyrant and Magnatech. Titan and the Order stuff is a for sure because of Multi-Paul and it's the confirmation of Titan's return. Tether Tyrant and Magnatech is a maybe. They could do a quicker version of it, but they've got a lot to balance, so I don't know. Issue 48, we get Doc Seismic breaking out and taking over, and we get Mark visiting Eve in Africa. They dropped the Africa stuff in the show, so that's not happening. Doc Seismic breaking out is a for sure. 49 and 50, continuation of Doc Seismic and Mark versus Cecil, for sure, 100%. Cecil's origins, maybe in a special episode like Adam Eve, but I'm not sure. 51, Black Suit and Kid Omni-Man, for sure. Both of them. New Guardians, for sure. First prison break attempt, maybe. Angstrom tease, for sure. 52, Kid Omni-Man kills the Mauler twins, for sure. 53, more Titan and the Order stuff, for sure. 54, Future Immortal thing, for sure. Date montage with Eve, for sure. 55, fuck yeah, prison break and Mark and Eve fucking, for sure. 56, Gary beats Amber thing, maybe. It's something that it's handled with a lot of care in the comics, and I think they could do it well in the show, but there's just been so much discourse about Amber. I don't know. We'll see. So maybe. 57, the whole Wolfman thing, I'm going to say it's not happening. Maybe in a later season, but there's just too much to balance in this season. And that's a pretty easy thing to cut because it doesn't really affect much that happens after it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. 58. Eve doing the business stuff. I think that's maybe the first sure. It kind of depends depends on how everything else plays out, but I could definitely see it. All the Guardian stuff in this, like Kate and Immortal buying a house and Rudy and Amanda stuff, all that is for sure. The tease to Invincible War, for sure. 59, Powerplex, for sure, without a doubt. All of it. What an incredible issue. And then 60 through 65, all of it for sure. Modified versions, definitely, but I think we're definitely getting the Invincible War and Conquest. I'm not done yet, though. There's some stuff past this that I think they'll move around to before all this. 66 and 67. All of it for sure. Maybe my favorite issues in the series. Perfect B-plot for the season. 68, not happening. I don't think they'll try to squeeze dinosaurs in this season, even if it is just an introduction. 69, I could maybe see Universa because it's smaller, but I doubt it. I could also see the second Sequid thing coming back in season 3 just because they've been moving that along faster in the show. And Mark killing again could be used differently than it is in the comics, but I'll still put it in maybe. 71, I could maybe see them ending the season with some of this, but I really doubt it. Anything past 71 is probably a not happening. Just most events after that are affected by what happens in Invincible War and Conquest, and I just don't think they'll move that to before because it would have to be changed too drastically, but I don't know. I could be wrong about that. We'll see. Okay, we did it. I told you guys I was reading the comics, dude, and that's why this took so long. Now, that seems like a lot of shit, and it really is, but covering like 20 to 30 issues per season has been the trend so far, so it kind of lines up perfectly because we just covered about 25-ish issues that I think will be adapted in season 3, so kind of works perfect. Now, placing where things are going to go is going to be very difficult. There's a handful of events that are kind of interchangeable, and with how much they shuffle things around already, there's really no way to know exactly when some of the smaller moments will take place. However, I'm quite confident in a few things, so we will start there and then look at some of the ways the rest can be filled in. So, let's start with the end. I already stated I think we'll for sure see the Invincible War as well as Conquest in Season 3, but how do those events play out? Here's what I think. Basically, I think episodes 6, 7, and 8 will cover issues 60 through 65 pretty much to a T. I think episode 5 will end with the shot of all the different Invincibles and Angstrom saying it's a start. Episode 6 opens with showing us the aftermath of Mark vs. Angstrom in the season 2 finale and how Angstrom was able to survive. I think they'll expand a little bit on this and actually show him going to other dimensions and collecting the other Invincibles. And then when it catches us up to modern day, we'll see the other Invincibles are already invading Earth, and we get the iconic shot. From there, all of episode 6 is a heavily expanded upon Invincible War. It's already a huge event, but there's a lot of scenes that I feel were condensed to speed things up in the comic. Like this page, for example, we just get glimpses of what could be turned into full-fledged scenes with the show. Like in the comics, we don't even really see how Eve gets hurt. And that'll definitely change in the show. It all plays out basically like issue 60. So the episode ends with Angstrom expelling the other Invincibles, getting caught by R. Mark, and then escaping only to be imprisoned. Although I don't think they'll show us that in episode 6. The episode ends with Mark viewing all the destruction caused by this event. Then, episode 7, we get Mark visiting Eve in the hospital. The world kinda in disarray. A temporary reconciliation of Mark and Cecil to clean up. Powerplex attacks Mark. Immortal retires. Cecil tries forming a new Guardians. Mark just wants to clean up, and then of course, Daddy arrives. I think there's a couple different ways this could play out, but I'll start with what I'm most confident in. I think a good chunk of the Conquest fight will happen in episode 7, and the episode will end with Eve's death. So basically this episode covers 61, 62, and 63. It could just end similarly to issue 62 with Cecil realizing they're completely out of options, but I think Eve's death serves as a great cliffhanger to build up for the finale. I also don't really think they would have Eve's death in the same episode as her coming back, as it could just take away some of that tension, but maybe I'm wrong. I think they could also just shuffle around some of the stuff within the fight, like have Eve come help before Oliver does or something, but who knows. Then episode 8, the finale. I think this episode we get the conclusion of the Conquest fight and the aftermath, basically issues 64 and 65. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me on that prediction because people assume the finale will contain a big action-packed fight, and I agree 100%. I just think Conquest is big enough to cover 2 episodes, and they have to show the conclusion and the aftermath of Conquest to wrap up the season. So to fit the entire fight and the conclusion into 1 episode is kind of a stretch in my eyes. I think we'll get Rex's funeral, Eve's powers acting funny, Cecil trying to keep Conquest alive, and Invincible saying he won't hesitate to kill anymore, all in the finale episode. The episode could just end right there, but I could also maybe see them ending with Omni-Man and Alan visiting Mark to recruit him for war, because how badass of a setup is that for season 4? But that would mean they'd probably have to do the Sequids and Universa before the finale, which is possible, but it's pretty unlikely. We'll see. That gives us our episodes 6, 7, and 8. From there, we can start to fill in the rest, but it's going to be a lot trickier than you'd think. To start us out, here are the bigger events I think we'll see adapted. Oliver gets his powers, Mark vs. Cecil, Future Immortal, Titan and the Order stuff, Powerplex, Oliver killing the Maulers, the Prison Break, and maybe the Sequids. Mark vs. Sequel and Oliver getting powers kind of precede a lot of these events, so they need to happen early. Although there's a couple problems. Oliver getting his powers kind of has to happen first to set up Kid Omni-Man after the Mark vs. Cecil fight, but Oliver needs to be quite a bit older than where we left off. But Mark vs. Cecil is a pretty big event, and my gut tells me that it should either be the opening episode or the mid-season finale because of that. But there's not a legitimate reason why they'd have to do that. So before going into specifics, let's put Oliver getting powers at episode 1. Everything after that can be shuffled around a little bit, but to see what else may happen in episode 1, let's look at where season 2 left us off at. Mark is overall a little depressed. He's quit college, working for Cecil full time, and planning on training a lot more. We also have Mark and Eve set up, but not yet dating. Kate is alive, but no one knows yet. Debbie has a date set up. Oliver is growing quickly. Cecil is desperate for heroes, and Nolan and Alan are gearing up to break out. So now let's get into the specifics. I think we'll open with Mark on the moon, like in issue 42. I think it's a cool kind of hook to pull you in, but also Mark being kind of down / bummed, sitting there kind of fits well, and the astronauts talking about him and comparing him to Omni-Man is a good little reminder of how season 2 ended. Then it plays out similarly to that issue. Mark goes back down to Earth, fights the giant, or they swap it out for another villain or whatever. Mark quickly goes back to the moon and saves them, and then he does the press conference about him being more public now. I think this is a fun, action-packed start, but it also reminds us of the themes of last season, shows us Mark is still busy, and the publicity thing can be used as a kind of setup for the Invincible War. That's a pretty specific playout, and I could be way off, but I think it'd be cool. We'd probably get little catch-up moments with a lot of characters, but nothing specific. Then I think we'll get the Multi-Paul / Future Guys fight. I know their names aren't Future Guys, but they have long names, so. It sets up more Titan stuff and the Future Immortal stuff, so it's got to happen early in the season. Also, during this fight, Rex tells Mark to go for it with Eve. Then I think we get Mark moving out of his dorm and a little check-in on William. Maybe show Amber is dating Gary. Somewhere in there, maybe as Mark's moving back in, Oliver gets his powers. We also will probably get a mention of Debbie going on a date or mention that she's been on one recently. From there, we get Doc Seismic taking over as Mark goes to visit Eve, where we'll probably get a little kiss or whatever. And then we get a check-in on Nolan and Alan. Now, I initially strongly believed that the prison break would be in the opening episode, and it still might be, but I'm not as confident anymore. I think we'll certainly get a check-in on them. Maybe they'll show Battle Beast or show their attempts at killing Alan or something, but the biggest point I think they'll make with the check-in is that it's taking really long for them to execute Nolan. And then we get the end of episode 1. Episode 2, we would get Mark vs. Cecil. I think this can play out pretty much 1-to-1 from the comics and fill an entire episode. It ends with the black suit and Kid Omni-Man and Mark and Eve officially dating now. It'll be exciting enough that you kind of forget about Nolan and Alan. I think we'll also start to get the orb stuff starting at the end of this episode, hinting at Angstrom. Episode 3, we get the Future Immortal stuff and the prison break. I think Mark will try and take Eve on a date after all this ruckus that's been going on, and from there, the future guys show up. I think this could be expanded upon a little bit. Maybe they'll include some stuff from Immortal and Kate before that or after it or something. Then when Mark gets back, we get the little date montage thing, and then when they get home and start to get their freak on, we get the cut to Alan and Nolan, just like how it plays out in the comics. It's a nice callback to Season 2, Episode 3, just like how when it happens in issue 53, it's a callback to issue 23 with the narrator. I think waiting until episode 3 for the breakout will help nail the feeling of why the hell are we waiting so long for this? And then that makes the reveal about the 50 Viltrumites even more impactful. Episode 4, I think we'll get the Titan and the Order stuff, Oliver killing the Maulers, and a continuation of Nolan and Alan stuff. I think the episode picks up pretty much right where we left Mark and Eve, maybe throw in the Gary Amber abuse thing, then Mark is on patrol and notices Titan visiting the prison. From there we get an expanded fight, and I think we'll also get the scene of new Darkwing joining the Guardians, though it may happen earlier than this. But then we see the Guardians fighting the Mauler twins and losing, and that's when Oliver comes in, and that whole ordeal plays out pretty one-to-one, and the episode ends with that sometimes line from Mark. I also realized that you could just completely swap the order of these two episodes, 3 and 4, and it doesn't really change either of them, so maybe they'll do that, who knows. Episode 5, I think we get Powerplex, the introduction of Invincible Inc., and it's tying up some other loose ends before the Invincible War starts. I think the first chunk of this episode is going to be pretty one-to-one of issue 59. We follow nothing but Powerplex for a while until he kills his family, etc. From there, I think they'll do a lot of issue 58 stuff. So Mark training Oliver, Immortal and Kate buying a house, Rudy fixing Amanda's curse temporarily, whatever. Little pep talk with Darkwing, some more stuff about the orbs. Maybe we check back in on Alan and Nolan gathering weapons, and then the tease of the Invincible War like I said earlier. And there we have it. That fills everything in for the whole season and checks all the boxes for the major events I think we'll see. All the smaller details like Debbie's arc and Rudy and Amanda, Donald, I think those could be shoehorned in like wherever. I didn't really want to spend a ton of time going through every single tiny detail just because a lot of it doesn't really matter which episode it plays out in. Now, I know I've already stressed this many times, but this is totally all just theories, and it's all based on just comic stuff and the trajectory of the show so far, and it's all just my perspective. There's a good chance that the writers have a completely different perspective, and they don't want to go completely off the comics, or they just have a different approach in mind. Maybe they want to do it more like season 1, where they bring in events from way down the road and completely recontextualize them. Like, who knows, maybe start the season off with Powerplex or do the future Immortal stuff right before the Invincible War. It all just kind of depends on what kind of season-long arcs and themes they're going for and how they want to explore that. We have no way of knowing what order all these events will play out in or even what events we'll really see. But based on what we do know for season 3, which is pretty much nothing, like I said, I feel pretty confident in this layout prediction for season 3. I still think episodes 3 and 4 could flip-flop, and there's definitely some details here and there that could get shuffled around, but other than that, I'm pretty confident in most of this for the time being. Just to cover my own ass, though, here's some random theories and predictions for stuff they could pull out of left field for this season. Robert Kirkman has talked about doing more with Darkblood in the show and maybe sending the characters to hell or something, so maybe they'll do that this season. We already talked about them potentially doing the Sequids again and Universa, and maybe they will do all that this season somehow. Maybe they'll find a way to introduce Dinosaurus this season. That could be fun to introduce him even earlier than he did in the comics. More crackpot-esque theories. Maybe they'll move up the Flax and stuff. We'll have Robot and Monster Girl disappear. Kind of doubt that one though, because they kind of need to be around for the Invincible War, but you never know. They could change it up completely. I could see them finding a way to introduce Thrag in some way, but I wouldn't bet on that too hard. It's hard to see them doing anything with the Viltrumite War or anything after that, because that will definitely take up a whole season. But maybe they'll do smaller things that don't necessarily relate to the Viltrumite War, like Bulletproof's origins, or maybe they'll do some stuff from some of the Invincible Universe comics or Guardians of the Globe stuff. You never know. They could also very likely just make new stuff just for the show. I mean, shit, how much time do we spend with Donald in season 2? None of that was really based on stuff from the comics. So maybe we'll see them do more new stuff with characters like Rex or Cecil or Immortal or Shrinking Ray, since they kept her alive for some reason, or whoever. Predicting the imagination of the writers is literally impossible to do, so I'm just going to call it wraps there before I give myself an aneurysm. The point of all this is there's no way to really know. Once we have more information like a trailer or news or a poster or something, I'll have a little more to work with and can predict more accurately. I promise I will do a video when we get a trailer for season 3. Before then, I may do a video fan casting some roles for Invincible that haven't been cast yet, or maybe predict future seasons or something. I don't know. If you have any ideas of videos I should do before season 3, let me know, and there's a pretty good chance I'll do them. Okay, now we're going to talk about these leaks. I don't necessarily recommend continuing watching, even if you've read all the comics, as the leaks could still ruin some surprises for you. So, if you don't want anything spoiled for you, please don't watch any further. I also just want to disclaim here that I don't support leaks, and I think it kind of sucks that it happened for a show that I love. It really sucks for all the people that are and have been working hard on this show for these surprises and awesome things they're building towards just kind of getting spoiled on a random day on Twitter. I'll not be showing the leaks, and I don't recommend searching for them either. They're not that severe, so let this brief discussion satisfy your interests and move on rather than sharing them further. So, what leaked was a handful of pieces of concept art. The most revealing pieces of concept art revealed designs of alternate versions of Mark, which confirms the Invincible War, and Eve's messed up powers, and Mark with a broken leg, confirming Conquest. These leaks did not inform my predictions for Season 3, not that it matters, nor I can prove it, but I've been writing this video for a while and always thought we were going to see these events in Season 3. Along with these confirmations, we got to look at Mark's blue suit all over his kid Omni-Man, and what I think is one of the biggest wins is we got to look at Britt and Wolfman's designs, which confirms they'll be in the series. Fuck. Yeah. I still don't think we're getting the whole Wolfman issue though. It's cool in the comics, yeah, but it would interrupt the flow of the show just to include a random werewolf story in the middle of this jam-packed season, in my opinion at least. The biggest win from these leaks though, above anything else, is that we got confirmation that fucking Best Tiger is in Season 3. Fuck yeah. I fucking love Best Tiger. Dude's whole job is just to be the coolest dude alive. If you haven't, you should read the Invincible Universe issues centered around him. They're awesome. Okay, but seriously, it sucks that these leaks happen, but they've made me even more hyped for Season 3, which I didn't really think was possible. I know it's just concept art, but it looks like they put a ton of time and budget into Season 3, and that makes me super hyped. There's a lot of concept art of the landscape and background and stuff, and the style of it all just looks so phenomenal. But that's all I will say about it. Great work, Invincible team. I'm sorry your stuff leaked, but it looks fucking awesome. Well, I think that about does it for us for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I spent quite a bit of time and effort on it, so if you did enjoy it, you should definitely give this video a like and our channel a subscribe. If you're looking for some more content, you should definitely check out our podcast, The Nerd Authorities, where we discuss and goof about nerd stuff. We're working on some more videos for the channel as well, so keep an eye out for those. But until then, I will see you guys later. Peace.